Every election cycle across the African continent, politicians have one thing in common: to make promises to the masses, to the electorate, most of which are never accomplished or fulfilled. Since Africa, most of the countries in Africa regained their independence in 1960, 1957 with Ghana, and of course 1961, the idea and the desire of the Africans have not changed. Today, we are looking at the advent of democracy, which has been defined as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In every election cycle, promises have been made, whether it is in the northern part of Cameroon, or it is in the southern part of the nation, or it is in the western part of the country, or within the east. In every election, whether it is a local election, whether it is a municipal and legislative election, whether it is a presidential election, whether it is election at the colleges, universities, or election at the quarter for quarter heads, promises are being made. Promises are not being kept. We will hear politicians in every election cycle. They will come with barrage of promises. If they were sought, they will baptize their name to be Peter. They will preach the gospel of development, the gospel of construction of roads, the gospel of the provision of electricity, the gospel of the provision of potable drinking water, the gospel of the provision of security, the gospel of the redistribution of income, the gospel about balanced development, the gospel of merit and objectivity, the gospel that electorate shall not be judged by their names, but the content of their character, the gospel of we the people. And after they have been voted, you will see they will get a reverse polling. When, if they were Peter, they will change to be Saul. And you will see and you ask the question, what has happened? To those who you used to play with, you will not have the opportunity to play with them. And if you call them after the election, their calls are not being picked by them. They are picked by who they call AA, who are so arrogant sometimes to tell you that their bosses are not available. And sometimes when you pay a visit to them, you will sit at their lobby for 5 hours. They will not even attend to you. But these were people before the election cycle. They will come, they will kiss babies, they will dance at the cultural center, they will go to the market, they will roast maize with their mothers, they will carry things pretending to be selling. But after being voted, you will not see them. And now we are asking the question, here on House of Commons, today's edition of our program, who takes the responsibility of voters' education in Cameroon? Who has the priority or the objective power of voters' education? Because as it stands now, the truth is that voters across the different regions are not well informed about making choices and about selecting their leaders. And sometimes we tend to see others operate along tribal bases. Sometimes others operate along regional bases. But that shouldn't be the context of democracy. People should be voted by their track record, by who they are, and not by where they are coming from. And so we are asking the question, who takes this responsibility? Is it the government, which is supposed to educate the voters? Is it the civil society organization who are supposed to educate the voters? Or is it the opposition parties across the nation who has the power to educate the voters to make objective and realistic choices? Or should we allow it in the hands of international NGOs like USAID and other NGOs? This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Jarvis. You're welcome back from that transition. If you are just joining us, this is House of Commons. We meet Tah Mai Jarvis. We await a good number of our guests in here. However, I made it clear that when it's top of the hour, we'll start the program, as the program is supposed to start exactly at 12. We await the arrival of Fabrice Lena, the Secretary General of the Populous Action Party, Stephen Mwambo, who is caught in traffic. And here in the studio, we are joined by the co-founder of the New Era Youth for Africa, Ndewum Emmanuel, who is joining us in that capacity, because we are looking at voters' education. Who takes responsibility? Is it the civil society organization, the government, or opposition party? Or is it a collective effort? Be that as it may, who takes responsibility? Here in the studio, we are joined by Ndewum, as earlier announced. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, Tah Mai Jarvis. It's always a pleasure to be on your platform. Of course, I encourage you to keep doing what you are doing, for even at times when certain people throw stones at you, we understand, perfectly understand that we are in a very complicated nation as of now. And our context has been, flooded with a lot of tension, to the level where whatsoever you do, one or two persons who think that you did not do it to their satisfaction. So I want to encourage you to keep edifying and to keep helping Cameroonians for the right information to flow. That is why I'm here today.
Thank you very much for coming. We want to also wish those of you who are watching us online a very, very happy Sunday. To those who are watching us at the different parts of the nation, happy Sunday, and keep your comment and the conversation coming in as far as the topic is concerned. Ndewum Emmanuel, we've had a series of election cycles in Cameroon and across Africa. Our focus, though, is Cameroon. The organization is Africa. It's not only Cameroon, because the New Era Youth for Africa. And we are 17 months to a new election cycle in Cameroon. And I'm asking the question, who takes responsibility for voters' education? Because over the years, we've seen people campaign for things that is not within their power, like legislative arm of government will tell you that we'll construct roads, will be bridges, or mayors, senators and members of parliament goes to constituency, the kind of promises they make, and the way they are being held by the people. It's like the people don't know what it actually takes for these people. So who takes the responsibility?
You know that in Cameroon we have an elections body, a body that controls election, which is ELECAM. If we were to go by this reasoning, I would think that the person who is supposed to take charge of voters' education in Cameroon should be ELECAM, that is Elections Cameroon. But quite often than not, the scenario has not been the same. Why do I say so? You discover that you see political parties, like this morning before coming to this studio, without any publicity, I saw MRC rushing after people to register their names to the electoral register. And I was asking myself a question. What is going wrong with these political associations or Njangi groups in Cameroon? This is a party that in 2020 said they were not going for election, because that election, the results were going to be determined by the Constitutional Council through the management of the same ELECAM. And today they are on the streets canvassing for votes. They are actually encouraging people to go out massively and vote and get their voters registration card, which to me I think is problematic, Jarvis, because we have ELECAM, which is in that part of the country. Now, that equally tells you, and clearly, that the person who is supposed to take charge of voters' education in Cameroon is not supposed to be the political parties, but ELECAM. They have an equipped staff recruited, they are paid for that, they have all the machines that it takes for the registration, counting, and everything that goes with votes in Cameroon. How then do we expect civil society organizations, political parties, clergies to encourage the people to go out and vote? If we are talking about encouraging every citizen to see reason as to vote, I can agree that the civil societies, the clergy, the political parties can encourage the citizens. But who should take the lead to educate the masses about voters' education in Cameroon? I think it should be Elekam.
When you say it should be Elekam, many may not agree with what you're saying. They think that the civil society has that role because they are political and they are not partisan. And because they think that the civil society is aimed at transforming the mind for the people to see what is good for them and what is bad. And now they'll disagree with you that Elekam, a lot of people say Elekam is political. And so Elekam will not want to educate one party or the people because they feel that if educating people on A, party A will accuse them. Coming to this party B will accuse them. So therefore they should just conduct the election. And these political parties that were civil society should take the lead, because what does is the use of civil society organization in countries where voters don't know the right choice to make.
Well, your question is very pertinent, Tah Mai Jarvis. Your question is very pertinent. You will also agree with me that we are talking in the context of Cameroon.
Of course, we are talking within the context of Cameroon.
Within the context of Cameroon. And in the context of Cameroon, the civil society, those that want to, like, you know, there are some civil societies that ends only a name, but actually they are political. Yes. That is why you will discover that, I will just give you an example. The young man called Cabral Libi came up with 11 million citoyens. That was to actually educate the northerners of the importance of elections in this country, the importance of going to Elekam, registering and having a registration card so that it can empower you or it can make you eligible to vote. What happened with that movement? That movement later on turned into a political party, despite the fact that his mentors, whom he got inspiration from, later on he even abandoned them. So you discover that the civil society, as you put it, is supposed to be neutral. But somehow, in the context of Cameroon, in which we are talking today, you discover that some of them end up being manipulated. Yes, I agree with you that the civil society is supposed to equally educate the masses. And if they were to stay apolitical, it means that your question to an extent is out of place when you say they are supposed to guide the people to know the right choice.
How to make the right choice.
How to
make the right choice.
Okay, how to make the right choice. I now get you clear. Yes, it should be their role to guide the people how to make the right choice. But then, the decision to go and vote remains a personal decision. It remains a personal decision. Talking to you, counseling you as a husband in your home does not make you change the rules of your home. It only assists you or helps you to have a routine, add or subtract certain aspects. But then, coming to the part of the political parties that you are saying, I have a problem there because most of these parties in Cameroon are not really for the opposition. When they go out preaching that people should go and vote, the same political parties that preach today that people should go and get their registration, their voters' cards, so that they will be able to vote. And in the afternoon, you hear that the grand allié, they are the full allies with the CPDM. What then runs across your mind. Does that alone not also go a long way to kill the same inspiration that was injected in the people who think that change can come through the ballot box? And the same person who encourages you to go to the ballot box is the same person aligned with the same person you want to take off through the ballot box. There is also a problem there. So the political landscape of Cameroon is so complicated in such a way that we, at times, no matter who preaches to the population, the citizens are already aware that it is complicated.
But I want us to go practical basis. When we had the Anglophone crisis, we saw a lot of civil society organizations flooded the streets, talk about justice, peace, had conferences, distribute resources, went to internally displaced persons, give bags of rice, bottles, and the rest. When we have an election, during the post-electoral conflict, we always hear the civil society will come again, will say, hey, you know what, we don't want violence, we don't want this. And now, when prices of commodities are going up, we don't see these civil society organizations. When adequate health care is not being done, we don't see them. Don't you think that, and also, when the period for election comes, you get to see people campaigning on the basis of names, not the content of character of people who are supposed to be elected, but of their names. That is, this man is from my area, and what has been summarized into tribal basis. So is it not the right now for civil society to start preparing the minds? I'm talking about like your organization, to start preparing the minds of people to understand that voting should not be done on tribal basis, regional basis, should not be done on regionalism, should be done on track record. Is it not the right now? For example, a lot of people have been discouraged about voting. Shouldn't we teach them how to protect their vote?
Thank you very much for that great question. When you ask a great and a clear question like that one, the answer will be great and clear too. You know, the civil society in Cameroon has been doing much. We cannot argue the fact that they have not been doing something. But then, at times, like I said, the hands are tied, because some of them struggle to meddle into politics. But let me pick from what you said. You asked a question that when we see prices of commodities skyrocketing in Cameroon, the civil society comes in. When we look at MTN mobile money tax that came up, they came out very vocally. The prices of the stamps from the beginning of 2023 went up to 1,500. They spoke. But practically, you know, civil society are supposed to be like peace brokers. They should not be partisan, even though some at times tend to be. Now, I think this your question will help our viewers to know that the real civil societies that are for the people, be it a politician, be it a clergy, be it a commoner, should be able to educate the people that tribalism has never developed a country. Regionalism has never developed a country. Voting people based on tribal basis is one of the factors that have killed Cameroon. Because, and all of this, those who are fully responsible is the government. The government discovered that if we could go by tribal lines, we will fragment the unity, the bond that could exist between the people. So that is where we say in Cameroon, meritocracy has gradually given room to mediocrity. That is, those who know nothing quite often are placed to do everything in the place of those who could do it for them. So I think the role of the civil society in that light will be very important. Let's let our people know. Vote Ndium not because he is from Com, but because you think he can assist Cameroon first. Because what has failed Cameroon is that quite often than not, when these people come, like our anthem already met it, land of promise, and we know we are in a land where a lot of promises are made every day, none of them are ever fulfilled. Now you get to understand that when these fellows are coming, what do they use to make these promises penetrate the people? Bags of salt, Maggi, their bread, their scripts of savon, and we only see them during elections period. So it is important for our people to know that what you eat for a day, that will not last for long, is only for a day. But to endure hunger for a day and then build a nation for your children and the next generations to come is better. And that should be the role not only of the civil society, but of any genuine political party. I say genuine because we have quacks in Cameroon. They are not political party. I mean any genuine political party and a civil society that wants to see this nation reach a particular level of development for their generations and the generations to come should be able to make the population know that we don't vote for somebody because that person comes from Dian and you are from Dian. We vote for the competency. We vote for what the person can deliver. And before you take the microphone, you know, all these things have been succeeding because the leading party in Cameroon, which is the CPDM, has taught us through examples and speeches that if you do not have a doubtful character, you cannot be a member of that political party. And because of that, people have been fooled to think that elections and campaigns should be based on slogans, not on what you can deliver.
Are you by chance saying that all the members of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement are people with doubtful character? Does the president has a doubtful character?
99% of them, starting from the president, has a doubtful character.
No, yeah, is a yes or no? I'm not.
No, I am not obliged to tell you yes. I am telling you, and I insist, that 99% of those of the ruling party, starting from the top to the bottom, have a doubtful character. Do you have a problem with that?
You said, and I quote,
yes,
that it shows that before you become a member of that party,
yes,
you must have a doubtful character.
Good. And I will give you one example.
And let me pose the question. You give your example.
Yes.
The president of Cameroon,
yes,
is a member of CPDM.
The president of the CPDM party, yes,
and the chairman of the party. Are you by chance saying that he is of a doubtful character as lawyers?
Tah Mai Jarvis, am I speaking Swahili when I tell you that I say from top to bottom they have doubtful character? Just take for example, when we are talking about a nation building, there is a sector which is the educational sector that is supposed to be pure when it comes to results. How do you explain that in a country like ours, young men whom out of hunger have decided to join this party, and you hear that a young man is in Enset or ENS Bambili studying ICT, but on teaching practice on the field, the person is doing civics and history for teaching practice? That is a nation builder. And it only happens when you join that political party. And you want to tell me that they are not of that full character? I assume it there. I'm a Cameroonian, and I've always said it. So things like this, if we are not telling them, we are not helping this country.
Okay, we take exception to that. We are not responsible for that comment of that. Most of them have doubtful character, and of course that's your opinion, and you take responsibility. We've just been joined by Stephen Mwambo from the town of legendary hospitality. He was caught in traffic. Happy Sunday to you.
Happy Sunday, Mr. Jarvis. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. And we're talking about the issue of voting and who takes charge for the voters' education. Over the years, when election comes, we see politicians, they will come to our Njangi group, they will be in churches, they will hit drums, they will even lead prayers. They'll go to the market, eat with our mothers on the street, in the market, play with kids, babies, talk to people, and after being elected into office, if we call them, their phones are picked by an AA or a PA we're so arrogant, and sometimes to those who even have the courage to go and visit them in their offices, they end at their lobby and don't see them for over 8 hours and have to go back. And yet, when they are sick, they ferry themselves out of the nation. Their children are not schooled in our education. And when the next election cycle comes, they come back and do the same thing. And I am asking you the question. You have seen these over the years in Cameroon and some parts of Africa, which is an indicator that voters' education is highly needed. Because we also see that people vote based on their regional lines and tribal lines in Cameroon sometimes. And I'm putting it now to you the question, who takes responsibility to educate these people who constantly cry after every election cycle and so do the same thing?
Mr. Jarvis, the issue of the education of the electorate is a collective responsibility. When I say collective responsibility, I mean collective responsibility with all stakeholders in an election. That is to say the government, political parties, civil society, organizations, the press. It's a collective responsibility because elections have a great role to play in the life of the citizens of every nation. So you put it rightly that during campaign periods, we see our politicians in the market, in churches, planting trees and doing everything that will galvanize the people behind them to give them their vote. Well, I don't think at that moment what they are doing is actually the education of the masses or of the electorate, because then what they are doing is trying to win over power, and in winning over power they are ready to do whatsoever it takes, whatsoever can convince the mind of a buy and seller out there, a bike rider out there, a poor unemployed youth out there. They will do that to ensure they win them over. So after election, obviously you will hardly get to them. Probably you say you call them, they don't pick the phone. Maybe you've tried calling before. Sorry for you anyway. But I would like to say that the education of the masses, of the voters, of the electorate is a collective responsibility. It begins with the government, because the government have that assignment to see that the state is in order. And since elections, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, have a way of affecting the social, economic life of the nation, it is important that the government gets involved. Now, how does the government get involved in educating people? I will use Cameroon as an example. Through the Ministry of the Territorial Administration, we all know the role that ministry plays as far as elections is concerned in our nation. We know the role they play as far as the subordinates of that ministry, which are the DOs, the SDOs, the chiefs, have to do when it comes to elections. Now, in all our regions, these are people who ensure that elections go on smoothly. We know the role the government plays and has to play when you come to communication. And communication, it begins from what we are even doing here. You know, the state is responsible to regulate the press. My fellow panelists made a statement here and saying that there are persons of doubtful characters in the ruling CPDM party. If we are in a state of law where persons have the freedom to express themselves, because I noticed that you kept asking him questions with regards to that, but he is supposed to be free to air out his mind as an observer within Cameroon. So we need that freedom. We need a justice system that we can trust. And the education of the voters begins from there, because it's been the case in several occasions. I mean, in Nigeria, we're seeing what is going on at the moment, whereby a party which felt like the results that came from the elections is not the outcome they expected. They are writing petitions, and if the justice system of the nation is not trusted enough, you see that all of that is like you are pouring water on the back of a deck. We have our parliament, they vote laws, and they are supposed to ensure that the laws in the nations are being kept. So when we talk about the government being part and parcel of the education of the voters, it has to do with all of these. We have our forces of law and order who ensure that there is law and order during and after election. What do? Are they there to ensure that voters are protected? Are they there to ensure that voters are not being their rights are not being violated? That's a responsibility of the state.
So you are not bringing now the forces of law, because we see that in other countries. Prior to every election, like in Nigeria, this police do mobilization and educate the people during the process, before, after the process.
Of course, they have a very significant role to play. They have a very significant role to play. They need to ensure security. We've seen cases where persons carry ballot boxes. Who is responsible? Am I supposed to be a voter, or am I supposed to be observing to see that the boxes are not being stolen? That's the responsibility of the police. That's the responsibility of the gendarme. Now we go further to political parties, because yes, in as much as we are in a state and the government has that responsibility to see that it educates our citizens, because the education begins with the citizen, not necessarily the voters. Because we have now young persons of 15 years, and what they see determines the kind of voters they will become by the time they get to that voting age. We have voter apathy. In Cameroon, for instance, in 2018, we had about 6.8 million registered voters, but 3.5 eventually voted.
And 2 million voted the ruling party.
2.5 million voted the ruling party. Now, what does that tell you about a country which has about 15 million persons eligible to register their names on the voters registration list? People are not interested. The youth are not interested, because they are of the mindset that before we vote, we know the winner.
And that shows.
So what's the essence of them voting? So that's where the state has to prove itself, because elections give a sense of fulfillment into each and every citizen, to know that the person sitting at the helm of office is there because I voted, and I will evaluate this person after his or her mandate. So political parties to have that responsibility to come in and educate voters. And political parties have even a very crucial role, because they are the ones going in for elections. How do they do that? Through sensitizations, through meeting the people, and not necessarily waiting until when it's campaign period, like you said, to come and make fallacious promises to people, hoping that they will get their votes, and eventually they will win elections and be in power, and then embezzle as they can embezzle, crush the people as they can crush the people. We also have a very significant role that the press plays in the education of voters. The press, through information, we have radio, we have TV. What we are doing here is try to educate the masses in accepting election result, but also telling the powers that be to put a platform whereby citizens will easily accept outcomes of elections, because that's what happens. That's why we see the voter apathy and all of that. So I am, in essence, saying that the election process has to do with the government. The education of voters has to do with the government. It has to do with the press. It has to do with political parties, and very significantly, the civil society. In this case, I specify our schools and churches. It's sad that in Africa and Cameroon, our schools have become political milieu. Schools and especially the university.
Let me just come in there. You continue. You talked about the aspect of churches, which has brought in another argument where many say that churches are supposed to be apolitical, are not supposed to get involved. But there is an argument, and that argument was put forward by Professor P.L. Olumumba, in which he stated that before we go to schools, it takes a political process. Before we eat, it's a political process. Before we get to heaven, we must go to hospitals. Before we get to heaven, we must go to the toilet. Before we go to heaven, we must use the roads. And these are political processes. And that it is therefore the responsibility of religious leaders to get into politics, because he said church and politics are Siamese twins. And he also quoted that Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa said we cannot delude, and I quote, that we cannot delude ourselves by singing hallelujah when our men, our children are being judged by the colors of their skin and not by the content of their character. And that the Bible says for us to sing hallelujah, we must ensure that we are our brothers and sisters keeper. And that brings it down to politics.
Mr. Jarvis, I love the issue of the church in this argument. You know, one of the reasons why I'm late is that I'm coming from church. Actually, I went to church, and on coming down to my 70, I realized that I didn't take my ID card because that wasn't very necessary in church. But for me to travel now, I needed it. So the truth of the matter is, we are political beings. And from the cradle to the grave, we live politics. Whether you are a Christian, whether you are not a Christian. And even the churches that exist among us are being regulated by the state, which means that the church is a political organization as well. And even heaven certifies that, because the Bible asks us in Romans to submit to authorities that be. The Bible gives us commandments to keep, to love our neighbors as ourselves. It teaches us to be good citizens. In essence, it teaches what a state should teach us, to be good citizens. We have laws that we follow. So the church has a very vital role to play to educate voters. Because we have young people. I use Cameroon as a typical example. I used to say that I am worried about the future of Cameroon, not because of our parents and grandparents who are at the helm of power at the moment and embezzling funds, are not ensuring that our hospitals are developed, are not ensuring that we have roads to minimize accidents, are not ensuring that our education system is improved. But I am worried because when you listen to some of the young persons talk, you have the impression that they are waiting for the opportunity to sit at the helm of power and do worse than our parents did. So what does the church
briefly so
do?
I'll get to
the church helps to teach values. The church helps in inculcating values onto us from Sunday school right up to our maturity, so that when we get to help to a position of influence, whether from a political perspective or even as a business owner, you treat people with humanity. You treat people with a sense of reason that this is a brother, this is a sister. And in so doing, you are helping the state, you are helping the government to have better citizens. And of course, you are helping in what we are talking about today, building or educating the voters of the future.
We're coming back to you. Good morning, Jarvis, and the entire panelists, the government, and in particular, the National Election Management Body is primarily responsible for voters' education. However, the public and private media, political parties, and non-governmental organizations and international organizations can also play a vital role in spreading the message. I am Eden Viof, watching from Halifax, Canada. Thank you very much, Vio. It's been a while. Happy Sunday to you and happy Easter. No, this one reads, government is everything in Cameroon. They do just anything to their favor. They can discourage everyone except those who are for them. Educating the people to overturn result is the kind of education the government teaches. I'm not sure the government does that. No matter how much education anybody makes, the government will always use the military to frustrate the will of the people. This is coming from anonymous sender. I'm not sure. That's your opinion. This one reads, says, good afternoon to you all in the studio. What an interesting program. I am Yakubu, watching from Bavman. Thank you very much, Yakubu. I hope you are not Mr. Mahmoud Yakubu. Thank you very much. And Jew Emmanuel. Let's come back. You, a while ago, talked about parties, political parties that should also get involved. But we mostly see these parties only when election is coming. For example, we are 17 months to election cycle, to presidential election and the legislative election and municipal elections. We are not seeing these parties coming together to tell voters that these are things you must know about making your choice. In fact, calling even their voters to educate them on not voting for parties that give fake promises or promises that they will not be fulfilled. We only see them when election will be announced. You will see they will be moving from town to town to say, vote for us, vote for us, vote for us. Then after that, what next?
Yes, before I come to that question, you touched on a particular point that was very important, the church.
The church.
I can't go away without commenting on that. And to comment on that, I will tell you that in the context of Cameroon, every human being, every organization, every association has been intimidated by the state to, act within the whims and caprices of the state machinery, the CPDM and all. I want to remind you that when the Anglophone crisis started, the church was very vocal. And I will assure you that had it been this stubborn regime in Yaoundé listened to the church, I tell me the church, even including the imam, because we all know those who came out with your religious bodies. Thank you very much. With concrete propositions that even the common man saw it as the magic one. What happened? Is it not the very regime that sent some CPTM lawyers behind to take these churches to court? We saw how the moderator of the PCC cried in public in Boya.
Yeah.
What was his crime? The moderator,
alongside Bishop
Bibi,
Bishop Emeritus, Bishop Bushul Emmanuel, alongside the Catholic Educational Secretary of Blessed Memory, Reverend Father Nugik Alexander Sok, alongside the Imam of Buria.
And what were their crimes? Their crime was that at that time they stood for the truth. They were
stood by college of parents.
Yes. They stood and they were giving the government the sincere measures that could be used to solve this crisis before it gets to a full-blown war. So it is the same thing with some civil society organizations and some political parties like MRC who came out to march for the Khan Gate to be investigated, the war in Norwest to say stop. They are in Konengi today. So we can say that it takes extra and super courage in a country like Cameroon to stand up, resist for a long time. So the church has played its role. The church, in the churches in those days, we used to sit, when election was coming, the clergy will pray for a free and fair election. And he will give a neutral message that as you go out to vote, vote for the person that will take the nation ahead. I have seen that with with Reverend Father Bibi in Fundong, who today is a bishop in Boya. I have seen in Cathedral in Bamenda. I have seen here in Douala, where the clergymen have prayed, they have fasted, without calling the name of any politician. That is another role which is very vital. It is now left for the conscience of the citizen, like I said a while ago, that after all the sensitization, the education, and the talking, it now goes down to the conscience of the individual to take the responsibility of who to vote. But when you are in a country where intimidation is the order of the day, you discover that a lot of things have been happening today, but the church is mute, not because they are not seeing it. And some people have been very fast to say that the church have been pocketed by the state, not knowing that at the early stage of some crisis in this nation, the church has always been tagged also by the state for taking side with some people.
Yeah, I agree with what you are saying. Now, let me put to that question still in line with what you are saying. I'm talking about voters' education. You say you have seen Reverend and also preach about this education.
Yes.
Now, we are saying that election is under 17 months.
No, I'm coming to your question. I said I was to pick on that because
I want to give the church.
Okay.
Elections under 17 months. Like we saw what happened in the February election in Nigeria. The church became highly involved in the process for voters' education. Senior men of God like Oyedepo did not call that go and vote for this party, but he was fervent about how to make the right choice, who to vote for, decisions to take to vote, and he kept on hammering. But we don't see that in Cameroon.
No, you are right.
You say, oh, let's pray for peaceful election in Cameroon.
Yes,
let's pray for peaceful election.
Tah Mai Jarvis.
So what is this role? As far as others like Desmond Tutu said, we cannot delude by singing hallelujah while people are dying.
No, I don't think by being quiet means the church is singing hallelujah to the state or to the political party.
No, but they sing
I want to tell the church is made up of people. In that very church, you have the top ranking politicians in that church. Now, have you asked yourself what has been the influence of these top ranking politicians? There is a man you like to quote every time.
Minister Paul Atanganji, you quote Romans 13.
Yes, in Boya, at the burial of
Akeba
Patrick. There's someone, I think he preached even more than the bishops and the imams.
Of course.
There.
He even gave a prayer.
Yeah, he gave a prayer that the prayer point could go straight to God in heaven. But then...
And he said, and I quote, you continue. Yeah. Mr. Paul Atanganji said, I like attending funeral because it reminds him. I attend funeral, it reminds us about God and it brings us closer to God.
And it reminds him that one day,
yes,
he shall live.
That bring us closer to God and reminds us that we are just passing.
Yes. So, the church, we should not take everything here, place it on he who preaches at the pulpit, because the church is not made up of the bishop.
Just said there is an element that they have a role too, but they
have
that role.
I am not undermining that statement in any way. I am saying that the role of the church, like you are saying, is that they were supposed to be constantly reminding the people, which of course I agree with you. If they have been failing to do that, I think through the program House of Commons today, they can regain their consciousness.
Because we also saw, let me just add, we also saw in Nigeria where I think there were some priests who refused that you don't get into the church without showing your voter's card.
That's true.
That you must show your voter's card before you enter the church, because they have suffered in this nation because people don't go to vote, and that was fighting against voter apathy.
Well, that one is the case of Nigeria, and we understand that Nigeria is far more ahead of us when we are talking about election. We cannot compare the two. Because in Cameroon, I think what has kept the ruling party in power for this long is not that they have always presented good projects. They have a way of driving the masses not to vote. And one of the ways to drive the masses not to vote is to make sure that they do not have their identity cards. I don't think in Nigeria, that priest who was driving the people also asked for the ID cards and did not see it. In Cameroon, I want to tell you that there are potential voters who will not be able to vote in 2025 because they don't have their ID card. That is one of the ways that the state has struggled to deter people from voting. And another way is to make sure that Elekam which is supposed to constantly be on the field. Remember I told you that the role of the civil society, the clergy, the political party only comes at the second line. The first educators of the voters in Cameroon is supposed to be Elekam. That's why they are planted in every subdivision in this nation. It is supposed to be their role, and they are paid for that. So, in essence, we can say they are paid for job for job not done.
No, it's a job not done. They conduct elections now.
No, but they are supposed to be on the field. Tah Mai Jarvis. I am saying that they are supposed to be on the field.
They are even on the field now with MRC.
Where?
I don't think that's your primary role.
Yeah, because
no,
I raised a question here that if you say Elekam should do that, people still accuse Elekam of supporting a party A and party B because they say their message who is indirectly attacking this party.
When you look at the organigram of the Elekam, is there anywhere written that Elekam is a CBDM or a state machinery? No. So you are mixing up something there. It is you and I who knows how the country functions that knows that the election Cameroon belongs to CBDM.
No, I don't know that.
I am the one say it. I know.
Yes.
It belongs. listen, let me land. I am saying that it belongs. But in the composition of Elekam, it was supposed to be made up of civil society, clergy, political parties, different political parties. But that's not the case. When you look at Abraham, he's of the CBDM.
No, he's not. He was before.
I am telling you that he was one of the.
He was, but he's not.
Now you are falling into the trap where I just a while ago.
He resigned.
A while ago, I told you that except you did not know. You have now come back to agree with me. Abraham was one of the best SDOs that Fundong ever had, and was on the ticket of the CBDM. I don't know if you would deny this one. Anyway, we are saying that if Elekam was supposed to be the way it's supposed to be, it was supposed to be composed by people from every walks of life, be it the clergy, the civil society, and different political parties, to give it that name of neutrality. But that is not the case. But to think that the primary role of Elekam is not to sensitize the population, then we are missing a point here. Their primary role first is to let the people register. And before you register, they tell you, they school you the essence, the importance of having your voter's card and using it when the time comes. I have been there. I have been schooled. So I am not speaking from space. Every other organization educating the population or the citizens comes after Elekam. That is why they are planted all over the national territory.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Jarvis. Good morning. Political parties could play an important role in encouraging voters' registration. But each time they want to hold rallies, they are frustrated by the powers that be. This is coming from Joseph in Bamenda. This one says, my opinion is that it is a collective action. I am called Gabriel from Mudika. That should be in the southwest region. And this one says, hello, nice program. Keep encouraging people to vote, whereas it will be stolen. Let me read this one. Okay, your message is gotten. If I don't read it, just know that you were insultive. Please, when you send us a message, be a bit Republican. Don't target persons. So target issues, raise issues. Talk about the issues that we are raising, not an individual or by insult. Let me come back to you. Let's look at the aspect of voters' education, this time from the political parties. These political parties will make us to believe that they are being stifled by government on educating the masses. But when you go to their social media platforms and other platforms that they do run, I don't think that the government will stop you from taking on air to say that, okay, for you to vote for a right choice, identify this and that. None of them ever take time to school their voters to understand the responsibility of a mayor, the responsibility of a councillor. If you move down to the street and ask that the people in quarters, do you know your councillor? They don't know.
That's true.
They don't know which road is supposed to be done by the central government, by the municipality, which one is supposed to be done by the
city mayor.
By the city mayor. Now we have city mayor. Now we have independent consulator. Now we have the regional assembly. Now we have the House of Chiefs. This responsibility is part of the voting exercise. People don't know the role of the members of parliament and senators. And when you hear the funny campaigns that members of parliament often go and give in some of the municipalities, is that they will construct bridges in areas where there's even no road, where there's even no water. And so in this, doesn't it tell us that even these political parties shy away from educating the masses from their political and greedy gains, because the people should not hold them accountable if they actually take because of the position of responsibility?
Yes. The role of the political party is very, very important in the life of the nation as far as education of the voters is concerned. When I cited the civil society, the government, the press, all of these have a role to play as far as the education of the masses is concerned with regards to election issues. But the political parties have a primary role because they are the main stakeholders in elections. The issue we have in Cameroon is that our opposition political parties, I really feel that they don't have a real interest in winning over power in Cameroon, because we have seen many of them turn out to sign deals with the government and finally sometimes sell off votes, or they make concessions and they give their own small ministerial position. We have the G21, we know
yeah,
the Jean de Dieu Momo of Padec. We have the Bello Buba Maigaris and the rest. So the thing is, political parties are not playing the role they are supposed to play, especially the opposition political parties. Now, you hear them often say that when they want to hold rallies, they stop them. Now, we have seen young persons like Fabrice Lena. I have seen recently, he was in Limbe. We saw persons like Cabral Libi, Honorable Cabral Libi. Before he went in to join Univers Party, he started with his Mouvement 11 million to get 11 million persons registered to vote. I didn't see the government of Cameroon stop him for once. That is to say, the government, as far as I know, have not stopped persons to go and help youths and young and Cameroonians who are eligible to vote to register for elections. Most often when they come in, it has to do with strategic meetings about the party. And so our opposition political parties don't understand this. Instead of them to use, because when they want to organize some meetings which scares the government will stop them from doing that. So it stops them from campaigning, in other words, because once a political party is always into activities, it's a form of campaign to bring yourself to the limelight so that people should know that you're working. Why not divert the energy to convince people to register for elections? And by doing that, the government will not stop you. And in doing that repeatedly, you are bringing yourself to the limelight, and you are also avoiding the embarrassments that come with other meetings, because we already know that we are practically in jungle. But at least in that jungle, we have not seen the government holding opposition political parties responsible for trying to educate people to register for elections. So go down to the field. We saw that with Cabral Libi after he went in for the election in 2018 and moved to another party and became an honorable, I think he forgot the initiative he took. And even in that initiative, which he deemed successful, we still had 6 million persons who registered for voting. 6.3 million.
So
they said it was about 11 million.
Which means that the electoral list did not add up.
It did not add up.
As we had in...
I came to the studio, I had elaborated, and I'm not taking his time.
Yes.
I want to think that what he says is very important. I was telling you that the problem with these political parties is that they themselves have discouraged the population. Because in the morning, they tell you people that go and vote. We want a change through the ballot box. That's what I said. But when the people are now prepared, the same persons who came to them to canvass for vote disappoint them in the afternoon by forming allies with the rest. But that's what I'm saying.
That's one aspect. I think the opposition party especially needs to take serious measures to bring people to that point of thinking that through their vote, because actually it's only through votes that we can bring substantial change. Okay, with the CPDM party, one thing we fail to understand is that as a ruling party, they have other mechanisms to bring voters to them. They have their electorate, they have a constituency that they know. For instance, the army
structures.
The army will vote for the CPD.
No, not that. That is a general.
No,
we have. You cannot know.
They will vote for it.
No, there is no ingredient to say that the government
This
doesn't.
This is why
No.
I'm saying that.
Yes, but there is no lay down text anywhere that the army will vote for the party in power.
No, they have voted in several occasions.
No, they have been voting.
They are voting centers.
We
right?
can prove that.
They are voting centers.
We can prove
They
that.
are voting centers.
Yes, of course.
We can prove it.
No,
they are voting centers in military camps. When you go there and take elections, 99%.
We can't prove that because
it happened in the north. In the north, where they are fighting Boko Haram.
You want to tell me that we have been having 100% in all areas that even the military is voting?
It's not 100%.
So
but we are sure of
Tah Mai Jarvis,
the military.
The military vote.
Yes, but and they
the
are
military
voting as Cameroonians, not under the banner.
Yes,
of their,
but they are sure voters
occupation.
of the ruling
They
party.
are voting for
because
Cameroon
they
as
trust the
Cameroonians.
vision of the president of the republic. They trust his vision, and you will not blame them for voting for them. We see CPDM rallies. Our practically 60%, or let me say 75% of our civil servants, especially those in positions, are obliged by some constraints.
No, there's no text.
I'm doing a political analysis.
Yes,
I'm doing a political analysis.
Yes, you will continue.
Yes.
You will continue. I have no. Politically, I have no problem with that, but I'm talking about this aspect now of the deontology of my profession, because we don't have a clear-cut policy of the state to constrain
Mr. Jarvis.
that, okay, if you are a government worker, are you by chance saying that government workers...
Have people not in Nigeria be forced that if you don't go out and vote this day, I mean during the in the context of Anglophone class, you will be suspended?
Bro. Mr. Jarvis, I am a political observer.
Do you have evidence?
Okay, wait. I'm a political observer. I don't need evidence to tell you that people are hungry in the southwest. Will you ask me to bring you an evidence for that? I observe, I see. It's a reality that there is embouteillage in Douala. I don't need pictures to come and prove that. I am telling you as a Cameroonian who mingles with people of different fields of work, that if you are a civil servant and you even want to get promotion, just be of the CPDM. We have seen people who have been sanctioned. The government calls it sanction. They don't call it sanction. We know that it's sanction. They send you to the north once you criticize them a lot.
So the north is
we have seen that with Professor Bayebek.
So the north
he was sent to the north as a UPC.
Are you by chance in the north is not a good place?
It's not that it's not a good place, but they know that sending you there,
punitive.
You will not even have. You will not even meet a TV channel that you will be making this noise.
There's nothing about being punitive because
it's a punitive
when they send
measure.
You to full hour, they know that they call it punitive.
If the government send you somewhere for you to go and develop the place because they have
found in you
something to develop the place, so we cannot call it punitive.
I support that, right?
So
that the best
so
of the
Cameroonians that
nation,
live
the
there?
best of the nation, that's the best in every field, whether the media, whether in education, should be spread to all corners of the nation to teach young people who don't have the opportunity to see better teachers. That's why I use the case of Professor Baebek, right? He went there and did surgeries.
When you say punitive, which means that there are less of Cameroonians.
They are not less of Cameroonians, but the intention of the government or of the official who send you there is for you to go out of the public eye, and you don't have the opportunity to criticize them. For instance, how many TV stations do you know in the north where you will be talking and we are seeing you everywhere in the nation? They know that's the biggest ones. How many people have internet connection and Android phone in Cameroon to watch you through Skype? So the truth of the matter is, the opposition party has a role to play. Likewise, the ruling party. But the ruling, I don't blame them for this, okay? I may come here with my own morality that to win power, you have to convince people. Some persons believe that it's a result that matters. And that's what is portrayed as far as politics is concerned in Africa. The result that matters. If they have to steal vote to be in power, they'll steal. If you want to be complaining, stay there and complain. But put your own measures in place to ensure that if they steal the vote, you will get them. So the CPDM has persons. They have villages that I cannot reach. They will use government prados to go there and register people for election, and we will vote for the ruling CPDM party 100%. Now our opposition parties are not structured. They don't even want to win power. One person gets up, goes to the Ministry of Territorial Administration and registers his party. He doesn't have 5 million for campaign. And we saw that when the government put in place a caution that if you want to go in for election, you deposit 30 million. How many could do that? That is to show you that most of them are coming into the political field to make some noise and eventually get some crumbs from the ruling CPDM party. So political parties have to be serious. The ruling CPDM party, which is difficult to separate, like I always say, it's impossible to draw a thin line between the CPDM and the government.
Why is it impossible?
I consider them as the same entity.
When you say the same entity, we have members of our opposition who are working in the government. Are you saying they are CPDM?
No, when I say the government, right? I'm talking about the hierarchy. And it boils down. I'll give you an example. The president's birthday, Yaoundé is shut down, and people have to gather. They go and remove children from school, which is supposed to be apolitical, as you put it. But I was saying that it's under the civil society because it's supposed to be a free space to impart knowledge. They get these children to go and sing. It's a good thing. If as a Bantu, as an African, I appreciate the fact that we can celebrate people. But do we close down ministries to celebrate? What is wrong in putting the time to celebrate the president's birthday at 5 in the evening when schools have closed? So you see that they use the school milieu for politics. The opposition, they use the political landscape. I don't know for what ends, because you see them crying, but you don't see them doing enough work. I gave you an example of Cabral Libi. He started a movement that brought some hope. He became an honorable, and having now a platform to even exercise that more, get people to register, he forgot about that mission.
He dismembered even his mentor.
You go to MRC, they have the opportunity. I gave an example some times ago. I said they say that their president is President Elu, and he is the president of the republic. Yet when he was put in Kondingi, he left Kondingi after a decree of the president of the republic. So they are talking about they won elections, and the president is leaving the 7 years mandate. Why not use that energy now? Get persons to register. Prepare their minds so that we'll not have but 3.5 million Cameroonians who will be voting in 2025, which I don't even think that elections will be in 2025. I said no, not I'm not a prophet of doom. I think that will be before then.
Okay.
I said that on Prime Hour a couple of weeks back that I don't see the elections in Cameroon to happen in 2025.
So you're not a prophet.
It's not being a prophet. I'm an observer.
Okay.
And I know that we are getting to transition, and to get there, knowing the kind of person that the president of the republic is, I think he will do that earlier. So the MRC, the SDF, we are seeing in fight. The members of the party were fired the other couple of weeks back. That's good. There should be sanctioning. People should toe the line in a political party. But that's not what's important. You need the people to vote you. You don't need the 12 or 13 or 35 persons that were sanctioned. They will not put you in office. So you give in your energy to educate Cameroonians, to educate them to register for elections, because Elecam does not have the resources to do that.
When you say they don't have the resources, I want to get to the womb, but very quickly.
Yes, let me add.
They don't have the resources. Don't they have budget defended in the parliament being voted?
They have a budget.
Nowhere have we had the chairman of Elecam come and say, you know what, we don't have resources, so they are represented in all the divisions.
Created on the 29th of December 2016, the Elections Cameroon was created for the purpose of managing, organizing, and just supervising elections.
So that we'll get to
they were created to manage, to supervise, and organize elections. That is to say, you can meet them in Ekok, so that if a Cameroonian in Ekok wants to vote, he doesn't have to move to Yaoundé like you have to move if you want to make your non-conviction.
You said they don't have
so
resources.
Their primary responsibility is to ensure that they are available to register you. They are available to count your vote. They are available to submit. But to woo people to get to the point of deciding to go to an Elecam office to register, it has to do with political parties.
You have answered my question. My question about resources.
The resources, there are resources.
Have they complained that they don't have resources?
No, their resources is to manage election and to get persons to register people for elections.
So which means they have
to register. That's
they have the resources.
No, not to come and educate you on
because
election.
It's part of their activity now.
The resource. When I say the resources, right, is at a limited level.
Thank you. We'll be coming back to you. Hello, good afternoon to you guys in the studio. I am Toby Roland. Dibote, watching live from Yaoundé. Permit me to say a word concerning the role of the church in voters' education. A good number of the churches in Cameroon have been trying to educate citizens during election. The difference between Nigeria and Cameroon is that they are men of God on social media. The men of God go on social media in their doings. The government could grant men of God audience over the national media during election. Besides, the purpose of every sermon is to change a life or a situation. In Cameroon, this has fallen on deaf ears. Everything about God is far-fetched, passing the GC 4 papers with religion. Religious study is null. So I think Cameroon, religion and politics are parallel in Cameroon. Elecam could bring out booklet containing educative modalities on voting too. Thank you very much. Your message is gotten. This one reads, it says, greetings to everyone in the platform. I am Prince in Yaoundé. Why is it that people don't want to understand that we don't have opposition party in Cameroon? All opposition parties are there for their stomach. This is coming from that person in Yaoundé. Mr. Jarvis, good afternoon. Enjoy your program in Cameroon. There is no DO or SDO that is not CPDM. Therefore, in context, all civil servants are CPDM. Victor, writing in Yaoundé. This one right, it says, good afternoon, nice program for the panelists. I think that the civil society has a great role to play when it comes to voters' education in terms of knowing the right choice, because all political parties will come and sing their song without even saying what they will do. This one, read, it says, all ELCA members are CPDM members. This is coming from Dimo Inedeya. And Dimo Inedeya, their message is gotten. This one says, hello, Mr. Jarvis. Nice program. Thank you very much, Joseph in Bamenda. And this one, it says, hello, Jarvis. When the government notices that the opposition has registered many people, they will either not use the card or issue the card later to deliver late. Issue the card late to deliver, to deliberately send the cards to a distant nation. This has significantly discouraged voters. Innocent writing in Bonaberry. Do we wanted to react to some of the things I was asking him?
Well, I just wanted to say that, you know, in essence, this topic is very educative. Yet, if we were to touch a finger, to place a finger on the realities of Cameroon, you and I will know that whether they educate the voters or not, elections cannot actually change the fate of Cameroon as of now. A lot of things are happening.
I don't think so.
Elections
No,
cannot actually change the fate of Cameroon as of now, because we have had elections. It is true, we are encouraging the civil society, the religious bodies, the political parties, though you know my stand very well that I don't think political opposition parties exist in Cameroon. We are in a one-party system. And in a one-party system, it becomes also very difficult to educate the people to vote for the only party that exists in that nation. That said, why I think elections in Cameroon cannot and may not be a panacea for the way forward is because you and I know how divided these political parties are. Camto will never give in to SDF ideology. SDF will not give in to PCRN, which some people believe that is a branch of CPDM. PCRN will not give into, I mean, you have about 315 Jangi groups that call themselves political parties. Yet, at the end of the day, none of them is able to give a clear manifesto to the population that this is what we can offer for Cameroon. I wanted to react about this issue of using schools as a political ground. I know that you will try to argue it, but it remains the point that I want to send out. We all know what happens in our state universities when elections is at the corner. I don't want to cite the recent one that I know that happened in Bamenda. And politicians, especially the ruling CPDM, take these students hostage. 2,000, 5,000. I mean, they buy votes. That now comes into the place of how far can other political parties go into this game, because they don't have the money. The CPDM has the money. They even use state machineries, state money, state cars to go for their campaigns, if at all they want to go for campaigns. So, in summary, I want to think every Cameroonian needs to start talking to him or herself now. It should no longer be an idea of a civil society, religious bodies, political party talking. Every Cameroonian should be asking a question to him or herself at this point. If I don't vote, what will Cameroon look like? If I vote, what will Cameroon look like? If I vote and I cannot protect my vote, what will change? Because actually, we can take even a whole year now, as you were saying, preaching to Cameroonians to vote. I am afraid that by 2025, if at all we will reach that period before election takes place in Cameroon, if in 2018 we had 3 million voters, I am sure that by 2025 we will not have up to 2,000 votes or voters, because Cameroonians are actually discouraged.
So now, let me ask you.
Some of them even think that to be in a country where you take the courage to go and vote, and you have the backing of organizations like Fake Transparency International, that it is waste of time. And that to go and vote, knowing that you will not be permitted to stay there for the vote counting, for obvious reasons, is a waste of time. Even though we may try to encourage them to go and vote, we know it's difficult. It's going to be difficult. So the voter apathy in Cameroon, I am afraid, may instead increase by 2025.
Are you by chance saying that you said and that election is not what may change, voting is not what may change Cameroon? You run a civil society organization, the New Era Youth for Africa. What then will change Cameroon if it's not voting? You talked about the issue of voter insecurity, that is voting and not being able to secure your vote.
Yes.
Is it not also part of that, the organization, to educate the people how to, protect their votes?
I think it is. And of course,
So what then can change Cameroon if it's not voting?
No. Where we are today, it is not voting that put Cameroon where we are today. The pains in Yaoundé did it. I think we need to go back and start from the pen.
And the people,
constitutional changes need to be done in this country.
And that can only come on voters' education.
Tah Mai Jarvis, when Mr. Biya was changing the names from this to that, was it the voters that told him to do so? No. I am saying that we should be very clear. There are certain things we should not fool ourselves because we want to please certain people somewhere. I am saying that for ELECAM to be credible, the present ELECAM needs to be dissolved and should be made up of men from all walks of life in Cameroon. No. The person who created ELECAM.
So you trust the president? You trust the president to do?
No, I have not landed now. Let me come. I am saying that if we decide that the members of ELECAM are supposed to come from the 10 regions of Cameroon and from the civil society, religious body, or whatsoever, it should be elective. That body should be elective, so that the members comes through election, not through appointment.
But where in the world that members are being elected to one?
Why do you think that we must copy from somewhere in
the
the
world?
world? Can
I'm not looking.
Can another side of the world not copy a good example from?
But how would they be voted?
Because a while ago you quoted about why would they?
How would they be voted? Because their funding will still come from the executive.
Their funding
of that body will still come from the executive.
And who told you that if they are voted, the funding will stop? The executive will not
their funds will still come from the executive, and what will still prevent the executive from using pressure?
Okay, are you telling me that it can only be funded now because it is owned by one man, which is the president of the
Nobody
state?
owns ELECAM.
But you asked me a while ago who created ELECAM.
Yes, it's the constitution that gave the president the power to create the ELECAM.
And even the changing of name that you mentioned, the changing of name that you mentioned, it started from the parliament. And the parliament was
no. Yes, that one will be a very big debate.
Yes, it started from the
parliament. Let's come back.
That will be you
said you were disagreeing with him a while ago that changes cannot come from the bylaw.
No, I said changes can come from the bylaw.
Cannot. So you were
yes. That is the message that some persons sell, and I would like to say, please, we should not preach such messages, because our nation is a very fragile one, very, very divided as of the moment. That's with opinion politically as well as the socio-cultural composition of the nation. It's a very divided one, and when we start preaching such messages, it doesn't speak well for our future. Already we see what is happening as far as the transition in Cameroon is bringing. You hear
Who told you that it's a transition?
You hear those from the north who are saying power has to return to the north. You hear those from the western region who say it's their turn. You hear the Sawa say that it's their turn. Those divisions which are already boiling, like a northerner said, on va mettre du nucléaire. Those are scary statements that should not be made. We are seeing what war is doing in our regions. We are seeing what it's doing in the north, and we don't want to get to that position.
I am not.
Time.
I don't think.
What I'm saying is, let me just round up.
What I'm saying did not come to power through election.
What I'm saying is that
he can as well do what he's.
We're out of time. We're out of time.
Let me just round up. I'm saying that Cameroon will change through elections. We need serious men, serious opposition parties, and even the ruling CPDM party. We need persons who are patriotic, who are concerned about the future of Cameroon to get involved, and that's what will change Cameroon.
Thank you. Good day, Mr. Jarvis. It's Mr. John from Mutengene. Voting is not in my agenda till death. That's your opinion, eh? And you still, people who vote their choice will still vote people that will come and affect you, so it's your choice. This one says this is just a sample of my work. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you. Thank you for coming, Doom Emmanuel.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. But I want to think that whether a nation is fragile or it is strong, before we take any step ahead, we need to do so with some. We should always look at alternatives, because there is no guarantee as of now in Cameroon that with the present CPDM election can sell Cameroon through.
Thank you for coming from Boya.
Yes, Mr. Jarvis, I'm glad to have been here. I want to just end that the state, like political organizations or every grouping, they are abstract entities. It's human who give them substance. And what Cameroon need is humans with direction, with goals, and we need politicians who are conscious of the game and who want to bring change in Cameroon. So elections will change Cameroon, and I believe that strongly.
Thank you very much. We want to wish you a happy birthday, Mr. Ako Eno Veron, one of Cameroon's all-time best in terms of football when it comes to the first division, and also football analyst Veron Ako Eno, one of our panelists for Prime Sports. I want to wish you a very happy birthday, and we pray that the good God continue to guide you, Mr. Veron. Happy birthday, and also as you celebrate this birthday, this period, we pray also that God should continue to bless you more for you to celebrate many more birthday. Once again, happy birthday to you, Mr. Ako Eno. And thank you, Diwum Emmanuel, for coming. Thank you, Mambo, for coming. We want to apologize for not having Fabrice Lena. He had indicated he will be part of the program. That's the Secretary General of Populars Action Party. But as it stands, as we ended the program, he has not yet come, and we don't know why he did not come. And we also want to apologize for not having Dr. Ako, John Ako. He's not feeling fine, and so therefore we had to run the program with the panelists who are already here in the studio. Every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30, the program comes to you. House of Commons, visit us on Facebook, My Media Prime or BT Media Group, and also YouTube, BT Media Group, Twitter, My Media Prime. I leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matters is your matter. And what should matter for you this day is that you should stay out of trouble. My name is Tah Mai Jarvis on Cameroon's commercial capital, Douala, Fengujong, Bange. Thank you, Alain, and of course, thank you, Desmond Akeba. Bye-bye.